Pokémon Emerald, everyone's favorite Pokémon game over the age of 25. The golden boy of the series just so happens to be my least favorite Pokémon game. And I know you're thinking I'm crazy, uncultured, you might have even unsubscribed. I don't care, I hate it. There's too much ocean, too much back and forth, and the special and physical game mechanics weren't even fixed yet. So I had this brilliant idea: how could I make this game even more insufferable? How could I take away even more joy from Pokemon? How about I take away evolving? Yes, you heard me. Let's take away that special tingling feeling you get when you see your beloved Mudkip evolve into a mud monster. In this video, I will be taking on the challenge of beating Pokémon Emerald with only Pokémon that can't evolve. That means any Pokémon I catch in battle with can't have any evolutions prior or after its current form. No exceptions. Let's get started. For this special challenge, I will be starting off with Corsola, as it fits the criteria of having no evolutions and is the only Pokemon that learns Surf, which is necessary for progressing through the game. Otherwise, I'd have to resort to HM Slavery, which is a no-no. I named him Bubblegum and ventured over to Route 1 to battle my rival, May. May's Treecko was easily defeated with just a few tackles, marking my first easy win, but that wouldn't last long. Next, I had to trek through Route 2 and 4, battling lots of trainers and getting lots of XP. Sadly, none of the Pokemon in these routes met the criteria of having no evolutions, so I was stuck using just Corsola for now. I then had my first Team Aqua encounter in Petalburg Woods. I faced off against an Aqua Grunt, but his Poochyena went down to just a few tackles, and aside from Corsola's glaring weakness to grass types, things were looking good, and I was ready to challenge the first gym. I entered the Rustboro City gym with my Corsola at level 13, and they were no match. He one-shot all of the gym trainers with Bubble, sweeping through the gym with ease. I then moved on to the gym leader, Roxy. She starts the battle sending out her Geodude, which is quickly one-shot by Bubble. She follows up with a second Geodude, who would meet the same fate. She then sent out her final Pokemon, Nosepass, who ended up being a slightly bigger threat. I hit her with a Bubble, and it does less damage than expected, but the second Bubble is a critical hit, taking her to low health. She decides to heal on the next turn, so I just stick to what's working and spam Bubble some more. She heals again, but barely does any damage, so a few more Bubbles ends the fight. I receive my Stone Badge from Roxy, and move on. I was then tasked with retrieving some Devon goods that Team Aqua stole, so I made my way to Rusturf Tunnel, slapped up a Team Aqua member, retrieved the goods, but most importantly, saved Mr. Briny's Wingull. And Mr. Briny was so grateful for saving his Pokemon, he volunteered himself as my personal Uber, and sailed me to the next town, Dewford. But this was more than just a town, this was opportunity, because just north of the town lied Granite Cave, the location of my next team member. I searched through Granite Cave, and after a few minutes I ran into Sableye. Sableye is the first Pokemon that you can catch in the game that doesn't evolve, so it fits perfectly on this team. Although it's not the strongest Pokemon, it poses a great threat to the next gym due to its resistance to all fighting and normal type moves. I caught it, named him Greed, and taught him Flash. After trading Sableye up to level 14, I took on the second gym, and since none of their Pokemon had any moves that could damage Sableye, this was another clean sweep. He defeated every gym trainer, effortlessly, and by the time I was ready to challenge Brawly, he was level 16. He started the battle sending out Machop, and if I'm being honest, this battle isn't even worth describing. I basically just spammed Scratch and Nightshade, and there was nothing Brawly's team could do about it. It's cheesy, I know, but it worked. None of their attacks could even hit Sableye, so within a few minutes of grinding down their health, we had a flawless victory. I received my second gym badge, the Knuckle badge, and went on my way. After meeting with Steven in Granite Cave, I sailed to Slateport City, fighting lots of trainers on this lovely beach, and headed into the city to handle Team Aqua. They captured what seemed to be a museum that's seriously overcharging, and I'm forced into battle to protect Captain Stern. After beating Team Aqua once again, their leader Archie comes in to send threats, then runs away with the rest of his gang like any netbanger would. But just north of the city on Route 10, opportunity awaited once more. After searching through the tall grass, I came across Minun, my third team member of the run. He'd serve as my leading electric type, which will come in handy against Team Aqua in future gym battles. I caught him, named him my evil twin, and continued up the route. Further up the path, I ran into May for another rival battle. She starts the battle by sending out her Wingull, and I kick things off by paralyzing her with Minun. From there, we traded hits back and forth until her Wingull is defeated by Quick Attack. She sends out her next Pokemon, Slugma, and I mistakenly keep Minun in battle. So I switch into Corsola, who gets hit with a yawn. Though just before falling asleep, I'm able to get a Bubble off, taking half her health. I then tank 2 rock throws before Corsola wakes up to deal the finishing blow with Bubble. May sends out her last Pokemon, Grovyle, which leads me to switch into Sableye, who gets grazed by an Absorb. I use Fake Out in the first turn to flinch him, and on the second turn I tank a Pursuit and hit him with Nightshade to bring him below half. Then he responds with another Absorb, but it's not enough to take out my Sableye before defeating him with another Nightshade, giving me the win. I journeyed to Mauville City, and in between, Corsola learned Bubble Beam and Minun learned Spark. Entering the city, I was challenged by Wally, and to be honest, I was expecting more of a legit battle, but his Ralts was so easy to take down with just a single hit from Minun. At this point, I felt confident in my team, and decided it was time to take on the third gym. The gym trainers were pretty easy to take down due to the level gap, but I had no type advantage, which would prove to be a problem against Watson. I faced off against him, opening the battle with my Minun, using Spark against his Voltorb, and he just self-destructed, taking both of us down. Next, I matched up Sableye versus Electrike. Just using Nightshade twice, I put him in critical condition, but he responds with a Shockwave that does some decent damage. Watson then decides to heal up, and we're back to square one. We then trade hits back and forth until Sableye's cut takes him down, but left us with paralysis. His third Pokemon is Magneton, and I'm forced to bring out Corsola as a last resort. But I use it as an opportunity to heal Sableye, knowing that he stood no chance against an electric type. In just 2 shockwaves, Corsola was taken down, but Sableye was back to full health, so I sent him in once again. Sadly, it was pointless, because he's immediately confused by a Supersonic and ends up hitting himself for the next 2 turns while being zapped by shockwaves. And just like that, the battle was over, and Watson didn't even have to use his 4th Pokemon. So after doing a little research, I found that there was actually another team member I could catch nearby on Route 17. Illumise, or Illumise, however you say it. Is she anything special? Not at all. Is she permanent? Probably not. But will she help me against Watson? Maybe. I caught her, named her Edisona, and went back to the gym. Now mind you, I did some very necessary training in between, getting Edisona to level 21, and now I was confident I could beat this gym. Only after I lost another 5 times. Holy shit. I hate this game. I don't even want to go into detail on the losses I took, just know there were quite a few, and I almost quit this challenge. But finally, I got my lucky break. Now we can skip over the part where I beat Voltorb and Electrike. Those two weren't the problem anymore. The problem is Magneton and Manectric. So I put my Minun against his Magneton and we both paralyze each other, but a strategically placed Cherry Berry cures Minun. I then switch into Sableye to do some damage with Nightshade, but he paralyzes him, making the battle much more difficult. They traded hits with Nightshade and Shockwave until they're both brought to critical condition, to which point I decide to switch Minun back into battle. He then uses a super potion to heal, but I had a new strategy which can prove super effective. I used Encore to ensure Magneton will continue to use Shockwave, which did little damage. And from there, all I had to use was Spark, which took down his Magneton in just 4 turns. Next, I had to take down Manectric, and I stupidly used Encore, which did nothing due to me attacking first. So I get paralyzed, and on the next turn couldn't move. I used Encore again, which forces Manectric to keep howling, giving me a chance to Thunder Wave him. But sadly, I'm paralyzed, and get hit with a quick attack for the KO. My last healthy Pokemon was Corsola, so I sent him in and used Bubble Beam. It did more damage than expected, and he fails to paralyze me due to another Cherry Berry. I used Bubble Beam once more, bringing him below half. He then unfortunately paralyzes me again, heals with a Citrus Berry, and then attacks first on the next turn with Shockwave, doing massive damage. But I respond with another Bubble Beam that brings him to red health. I then decide to cure Edisona's paralysis, knowing she'd be my last chance to win the fight. So Corsola was successfully sacrificed for Edisona to finish the job, and with one quick attack, Manectric was put down like a stray, finally giving me the win against Watson. I rejoiced, claimed my Dynamo badge, and tried to forget this ever happened. After losing so many times to Watson, I realized I was in need of an upgrade. So I headed north of Mauville to the Fiery Path, where I'd find my 5th team member of the run, Torkoal. She'd serve as my leading fire type and is also the only fire type available that doesn't evolve. Great for type coverage. So I caught her, named her Ashtray, and continued to Route 13. And surprisingly enough, on Route 13, another Pokemon could be found to add to my team, Skarmory. While not the only flying type available, Skarmory may definitely be the strongest that fits the run's criteria. And thanks to its steel typing and high defense, she'd make a great tank for the team. So I caught one and named her Rusty. Not too long after, I get wrapped up in some Team Magma and Aqua beef at Meteor Falls, which led to my discovery of Solrock, who I didn't even consider as a possible team member before. I decided it was worth a shot catching one, since after doing some research, I found it had a pretty diverse move pool, along with some decent stats. So I caught one and named it Sunny D. Now before I got to challenge the next gym, I had to keep Team Magma in check, so I made my way up Mount Chimney and slapped up every Team Magma member I could find. I then took down their leader, Maxie, and headed my way to Lava Ridge to fight the 4th gym. And per usual, the gym trainers were all pretty easy to beat, so I used it as a chance to level up my newly acquired Pokemon. I then finally made it to the gym leader, Flannery, and kicked off the battle with my Torkoal against her Numel. And with just 2 body slams, granted I take some damage, Torkoal knocked out her Numel. She sends out Slugma next, who I immediately hit with a body slam, bringing her to half health as she used Sunny Day. A second body slam took her out of the game, which marked 2 KOs for Torkoal. Her third Pokemon was Camerupt, and because of the Sunny Day boost, she was able to knock me out in one hit with Overheat. I sent in Corsola next and used Bubble Beam to bring her below half, but on the second turn, Camerupt uses Attract, making Corsola fall in love? What the f is going on here? But after a few turns, Corsola gets over that simp ass and kills her off with a final Bubble Beam. The last Pokemon she sent out was Torkoal, who unfortunately meant business. After 2 Bubble Beams from Corsola, only taking half her health, she decided to use Attract again, which ended up being my downfall. For the next 2 turns, Corsola was simped out, refusing to attack, as Torkoal knocked us down to 9 HP. So I switched in Sableye to do some good damage with Nightshade, but get one shot by an Overheat. Next, I sent in Edisona to try and sneak in a finishing quick attack, but she heals and one-shots me again. I then send in Minun to paralyze her and tank a body slam in return. I decide to heal Corsola and miraculously survive an Overheat, granting me another turn to deal damage with Spark. Luckily, the Torkoal is paralyzed, giving me a second opportunity to Spark again, but once more, she uses a Hyper Potion. I get 2 sparks off before getting taken down by a body slam, still leaving Torkoal at half health. I then switch into Corsola for cleanup, and after 2 Bubble Beams, Torkoal is defeated. I claim my Heat Badge and venture on. I took a well-needed break in the desert, fighting some trainers and getting some levels before returning back to Petalburg City to fight the 5th gym. Taking on the Petalburg gym, I decided to switch in Solrock for Edisona on my team, because if we're being honest, she just wasn't cutting it anymore. Once again, the gym trainers were easy to take down, and were just another chance to level up before fighting the 5th gym leader. I finally reached Norman, my father, and started the battle by sending in Minun versus Spinda. I used Thunder Wave in the first turn, and follow up with Spark in the second to deal some serious damage, leaving him in critical condition. Unfortunately, he responds with Facade, doing an equal amount of damage, and Hyper Potions on the next turn. I'm able to use Spark twice, bringing him to low health before getting knocked out by another attack. I then decide to bring in Solrock, who knocks out Spinda with a Fire Spin, but not before getting confused. His next Pokemon is Vigoroth, so I decide to send in Sableye. The first turn, he hits me with a Feint Attack doing little damage, and I lower his accuracy with Flash. We then trade hits with Feint Attack and Cut until I'm brought to low health, leading me to switch into Skarmory. And after using Steel Wing twice, Vigoroth was defeated. He then sent in Lanoon, another easy matchup for Skarmory. I first use Sand Attack to lower his accuracy, and then start spamming Steel Wing until he's brought to low health, with each attack in return slowly chipping away at Skarmory. Norman decides to Hyper Potion, but is useless as Skarmory knocks him with just 3 more Steel Wings. He sends out his last Pokemon, Slacking, and in return I send in Torkoal. On the first turn, I hit him with Body Slam that barely does any damage, and he uses Counter to take a third of my health. I use Body Slam again, paralyzing the Slacking, and then start using Ember, avoiding attacks as the Slacking gets stuck between loafing around and being paralyzed. He luckily gets off a yawn that puts my Torkoal to sleep right before finishing him, but it doesn't matter, and in a few turns, Torkoal wakes back up and finishes him with the final Ember. I claim my 5th gym badge, the Balance badge, and journey on to the next city. It's worth noting that I gained access to Surf, which I taught to my Corsola and made my way to Route 18 where I countered Steven. I then made the decision to catch Tropius, and I'm not gonna tease you and pretend that I used him in the video, I didn't. And if he's your favorite Pokemon, I'm sorry, but trust me, you'll get a Tropius appearance on this channel soon. Further up Route 19, I had to handle business with Team Aqua at the Weather Institute. Skarmory carried all the battles leading up to the Team Aqua admin, Shelly, and from there, Minun absolutely swept through her team as well. They gifted me a cast form, which fits my team's criteria of having no evolutions, but he's gonna go in the PC for now. I then had to face off against May, who was pretty easy to beat at this point. My Corsola one-shot her Slugma, then my Torkoal took down her Grovyle. Granted, he did almost die. And lastly, my Skarmory handled her Lombre with a peck in just a few turns. Though after defeating her, she gifted me the HM Fly and then biked away in tears. I made it to Fort Tree City, but before challenging the gym, I went looking for a team upgrade. Just east of the city, I found my next Pokemon, Absol. He's a dark type with a pretty diverse move pool and high attack stat, which will come in handy for future battles. I caught one, named him Edgelord, and returned to the city to battle the 6th gym. I will say, despite Minun being all cute and cuddly, he does some serious damage. I used him primarily to sweep through all the gym trainers, and they were no match for him. I made it to the gym leader, Winona, and kicked off the battle with Evil Twin. Using Spark just once brought her Swablu to critical condition. She decides to use a Hyper Potion, but it's useless, and just 2 sparks later she's knocked out. She then sent in Altaria, so I counter with Solrock. If I'm being honest, I expected Rock Throw to do more damage than it did, and after 2 turns of using it, she takes down my Solrock with Dragon Breath. I then decide to send back in Minun, using Spark, hoping to finish the job, but Altaria survives it and uses Earthquake. Luckily, Minun survives that as well, and gets off his Spark to secure the win. Next, she sends out Skarmory, so I switch Torkoal into battle. After using Ember for 2 turns, I get her down to low health, so she chooses to switch Pelipper into battle, who's immediately hit with an Ember causing a burn. I decided to send in Corsola as a staller, giving me a chance to heal Minun, and on the next turn, I switch Minun back into battle, but it doesn't go as planned. I sadly get confused with the Supersonic and hit myself over the next few turns. Luckily, Pelipper's burn is catching up to him, so I decide to heal Minun once again and wait out her slow death. We made a good fried chicken out of him and moved on to the next Pokemon. She sends Skarmory back out and uses her final Hyper Potion to heal up, but it didn't matter because after a few embers, Skarmory was knocked out as well. She then sent out her final Pokemon, Tropius. I decided to stick with Torkoal, but she's KO'd on the first turn by an Aerial Ace. So I send in Sableye to spam Nightshade, hoping to finish her off. She ends up taking out my Sableye with a Solar Beam, but not before reaching critical condition. So I send in Minun on a cleanup to finish her off with a Spark. With that victory, I claim my 6th gym badge, the Feather Badge. I made my way to Lily Cove City and took a look at my team, and honestly, the team doesn't look as bad for a group who can't evolve. I had switched in Absol for Sableye because Absol is just a much better Pokemon, and everyone seemed to have leveled up quite nicely. I then fought my final rival battle against May, which was pretty underwhelming considering her Grovyle hadn't even evolved yet. I'll admit, she did better than last time though. My Torkoal defeated her Tropius with Flamethrower, then my Corsola beat her Slugma with Surf. After, her Grovyle got smoked with another Flamethrower, and lastly, her Pelipper got zapped out the air by Minun. It was an easy win. Now at this point in the story, I'm forced to deal with Team Aqua and Team Magma before I progress to the next gym. So I'll give you a rundown of the things that happened. First, I took down Team Aqua at Mount Pyre, then took down Team Magma at Mount Chimney, who somehow still managed to awaken Groudon. Then I became a witness to a submarine theft in Slateport City, took down Team Aqua again, but ultimately failed to stop them from escaping to the seafloor, and then wound up somehow at the 7th gym in the midst of all this chaos. So while I'm one of the only people who knows the world's about to end, I decided to take on the Moss Deep City gym. This was a strange one, as all the battles were double battles, and I'll admit, they were harder than I thought. I beat all of the gym trainers, completed all of the puzzles, and made it to Liza and Tate, the gym leaders. But if I'm being honest, I lost again. Badly. Their Claydol was killing me with earthquakes, and there was literally nothing I could do. After my loss, I challenged the twins again, this time with slightly higher level Pokemon. I sent out Absol and Skarmory to start the match. My plan was to get Claydol out of the picture as fast as I can, so I hit him with a Bite and Steel Wing, causing him to flinch, while Xatu used Sunny Day. The twins decided to heal their Claydol with a Hyper Potion, but I predicted this would happen, and used Steel Wing and Bite again, while Xatu powered up with Calm Mind. One more Bite took out the Claydol, and as they sent in Solrock, it got hit with a follow-up Steel Wing as well. On the next turn, Xatu used Confuse Ray on my Skarmory, but Absol took out the Solrock with Bite, forcing their Lunatone into battle. The plan was working, divide and conquer. So as I go to Bite and Steel Wing Lunatone to death, sadly, Skarmory hits herself in confusion, leaving her vulnerable to a hypnosis that puts her to sleep. The twins then use a Hyper Potion on Lunatone, undoing all the progress I made. I used Bite on the Lunatone again, getting it to half health, and Xatu used Psychic on Skarmory, nearly killing her. Xatu's next Psychic attack takes out Skarmory, so I send in Minun, while Absol hits Lunatone with another Bite, bringing him to red. He uses another f***ing Hyper Potion, undoing my progress again on Lunatone. My Minun then paralyzes Xatu, but is one-shot by a Psychic, forcing me to send out Torkoal, and Absol gets off a Bite, leaving Lunatone just above half health. On the next turn, I target Xatu, hitting him with Slash and Body Slam to bring him below half, though he KOs my Torkoal with Psychic, leading me to switch in Solrock. I then take Xatu out with a Slash and Rock Slide, which also flinches Lunatone, leaving me the opportunity to knock it out with Bite and Rock Slide on the next turn. With that, I defeat the twins and claim my 7th gym badge, the Mind Badge. After defeating the gym, I went to the space station to stop Team Magma from doing whatever evil shit they had planned. I took down their grunts and teamed up with Steven to face off against their leaders Maxie and Tabitha. Steven and I sent out Corsola and Metang against their Camerupt and Mightyena. In the first turn, we take down their Camerupt with a Psychic and Surf combo, forcing them to send out Golbat. And on the second turn, I Surf again to hit both opposing Pokemon. I then send out Minun, who tanks some hits and returns fire with a Spark to nearly end Golbat. I Spark again, taking out Golbat, to which they send in Mightyena. After spamming Spark a few more times, one of the Mightyenas is killed before Minun would meet his fate to a takedown. I sent Corsola back out to handle the situation, which he did, with a single Surf taking down the second Mightyena and bringing down Camerupt a third of his health. Just one more Surf and Camerupt was defeated. Lastly, we faced off against Crobat, who was jumped by our Corsola and Aggron. He was quickly defeated by Surf and Thunder Attack, sending Team Magma home for good. Next, I had to make my way to the seafloor, but I realized that Corsola actually can't learn Dive, which was going to be a problem. I panicked, and without doing any extensive research, I caught a Tentacool as a HM slave for Dive, even though I really didn't want to have to do that for this challenge. But I realized I had overlooked a special Pokemon that could solve this problem. Love Disc. Love Disc can be caught in the same area as the seafloor cavern. It can learn surf, dive, and waterfall, and most importantly, doesn't have any evolutions. So I caught one, released Tentacool back into the wild, and headed to the seafloor. After some battles and grueling boulder puzzles, I finally made it to Team Aqua's leader Archie, where I tried to stop him from awakening Kyogre with a battle. I started off with Minun, hitting his Mightyena with Spark, and following it up with a Thunder Wave. Paralysis caught up to him, giving me another free turn to use Spark, which is a critical hit to knock him out. He then sends out Crobat, who's one-shot by another critical hit Spark. Next is Sharpedo, who I paralyze with Thunder Wave before getting knocked down with Slash. I then send out Skarmory, who finishes the battle with a few Rock Smashes, ending his Sharpedo and giving us the win. And even after I won, Archie still decides to use the Red Orb, awakening Kyogre, but unable to control it just like Team Magma, leading Kyogre to swim away and cause a storm of trouble. And now it's up to me, the literal child, to save the world. I find my way into Sootopolis City, and there they are, Groudon and Kyogre, fighting it out in the middle of the water. I'm then sent to meet Wallace in the Cave of Origin, who tells me I need to reawaken the legendary Rayquaza in order to stop these two from causing global devastation. So I make my way up the Sky Pillar and beg the legendary Rayquaza to save us. He answers and flies in like an overworked dad looking for any reason to beat his two badass kids. Kyogre and Groudon stop fighting, Team Aqua and Magma make peace, and the world is saved. After that dragged out storyline, I finally get to take on the 8th gym, so I walk my way in, mess up on the puzzles, fight a whole lot of trainers, and reach Hoenn, the gym leader. We face off, and the first Pokemon I send out is Minun against his Love Disc, who's taken down with a Spark in the first turn. Next, he sends out Whiscash, so I send in Skarmory, who takes him down with a few fly attacks, but not before Whiscash rain dances to boost up water moves. Next, he sent out Celio, so I countered again with Minun. One Spark put him beyond half health, and he responded with a Water Pulse. He healed on the next turn with a Hyper Potion, but just 2 more Sparks later, Celio was defeated. His 4th Pokemon was Crawdon, who I bring to critical condition with Spark, but unfortunately he retaliates with a Crab Hammer that one-shots Minun. I choose to send out Skarmory again and get off a few Rock Smashes, lowering his defense, before fainting to a Water Pulse. I then decide to use Soul Rock for cleanup duty, who immediately takes Crawdon down with a critical hit Rock Slide. His final Pokemon is a Kingdra, who I matched up with Absol. On the first turn, he hits me hard with a Water Pulse, and I use Swords Dance to power up. Next, he uses Double Team, and I use Slash to bring him near half health. And on the third turn, we both hit each other with Slash and Water Pulse, putting us one shot away from defeat. And knowing he'd attack first, I decide to switch in Corsola to tank the hit and stall. I use a Hyper Potion to heal up Absol, while Kingdra does the same with Rest, and then also decide to revive Minun. After Corsola gets taken down, I switch into Minun to paralyze Kingdra, and then switch into Absol to deal damage with Aerial Ace. Unfortunately, I get frozen by an Ice Beam, so I switch Minun back in, who somehow also gets frozen by another Ice Beam. Knowing I'd get KO'd in the next turn, I heal my Absol and send him back in after mine is taken out. And 3 Aerial Aces later, Kingdra is defeated, marking my 8th gym victory, granting me the Rain Badge. After beating my final gym challenge, I wasted no time making my way through Victory Road, where I encountered Wally for a final rival battle. His first Pokemon is Altaria, and I send out Corsola. I attack with 2 Rock Tombs that take him down to low health, but he full restores, and after the 3rd Rock Tomb, switches out to his Magneton. I then try to use Rock Smash, but it misses and leaves Corsola vulnerable to a one-shot Thunderbolt, knocking us out. I then sent in Torkoal to handle it, which he did, taking down Magneton with a single Flamethrower. Wally decides to bring Altaria back in, so I counter with Soul Rock and take him out in the first turn with a Rock Slide. His 3rd Pokemon is Roselia, so of course I switch in Torkoal to take it down with a Flamethrower once again. And his 4th Pokemon is Delcatty, so I counter with a type-resistant Skarmory. I get off a Steel Wing, but unfortunately I get hit with a Sing, Supersonic, and Charm combo, leaving me asleep and confused. But I push through it, waking up and eventually getting to attack again. Skarmory breaks from the confusion as well and uses Fly, bringing her below half health, but unfortunately gets hit with another Sing, putting us to sleep. I use the next turn to awaken Skarmory, and on the following turn use Fly, which brings Delcatty to critical condition, and of course, he full restores again. I then change my strategy and start spamming Steel Wings, and although she does put me to sleep again, I reawaken and use Steel Wings some more, taking down his Delcatty. He then sends out his final Pokemon, Gardevoir, so I switch into Torkoal. I start spamming Flamethrowers that bring it to half health before getting KO'd by a Sidekick, which leads me to send out Absol, who ends him in 2 turns with an Aerial Ace, giving me the win. I did quite a bit of training on Victory Road, preparing me for the Elite Four, and at this point, my team was all level 50s. I raised this band of unevolved losers into a real threat, hopefully being strong enough to become champions. So I entered the Pokemon League, and took on my first Elite Four member, Sydney, the Dark-type user. He starts the battle with Mighty Enna, and I send out Minun. He's pretty easy to take down, with Minun's Thunderbolt doing massive damage, and after a few hits, Mighty Enna was struck down pretty effortlessly. He sends out his second Pokemon, Shiftry, so I switched in Torkoal. He got pretty lucky, confusing us for 2 turns, but on the third, he gets shot down with a flamethrower. His third Pokemon is Absol, so I decided to send out Skarmory. And again, I used Fly just 3 times, taking a little bit of damage from Rock Slide, but ultimately defeating the Absol. His fourth Pokemon is Crawdon, which goes down to a single Thunderbolt from Minun, and his final Pokemon is Cacturne, who also gets one shot by a flamethrower from Torkoal. This might have been the easiest win of the challenge, if I'm being honest. I challenged the second Elite Four member, Phoebe, the Ghost-type user. We kicked off the battle Absol vs Dusclops. Just one Shadow Ball brought her below half, and a follow-up bite took out her first Pokemon for good. She sent in her second Pokemon, Banette, who's brought down to critical condition in the first 2 turns by a Shadow Ball. She tries to heal, but it's useless as Absol takes her out in 2 turns with Bite. Her third Pokemon was Sableye, who'd meet a similar fate. 2 Shadow Balls brought her to critical condition, but she gets lucky and crisps me with a Shadow Ball of her own. But it doesn't matter, as Absol finishes her off with a Bite for the knockout. Her fourth Pokemon was another Banette, who barely survives the Shadow Ball and chips our health down a little with Facade. She again tries to heal, but it doesn't matter, as Absol takes her down with Bite in just 2 turns. Phoebe sends out her final Pokemon, which is just another Dusclops. Absol takes her down past half health with the Shadow Ball, almost getting the team sweep, but is sadly knocked out by a Rock Slide. I stupidly switched in Solrock, expecting its Earthquake to finish off the Dusclops, but no. He gets knocked out in 2 turns, leaving the Dusclops with little left in the tank. But no worries, Minun's here to save the day, and takes her down with a Thunderbolt for the win, marking my second Elite Four victory. The third Elite Four member I faced was Glacia, the Ice user. For the first round, I send out Minun as she sends out Celia. I start the battle off right, getting a critical 1-hit KO with Thunderbolt in the first turn. Her second Pokemon is Glalie, so I switch into Torkoal, and with just 2 flamethrowers, she's melted to a puddle. The third Pokemon she sends out is Walrein, so I switch in Minun to do some damage. My first Thunderbolt was pretty underwhelming, so I used Thunder Wave to paralyze her. Sadly, I was only able to get off 1 more Thunderbolt before getting knocked out by a Surf, leaving her just below half health. Knowing that Ice types are weak to Rock, I send in Solrock and use Rock Slide, hoping for a knockout. But Walrein barely survived and full restored on the next turn, making this a lot harder. I was fast enough to get off 2 Rock Slides without being hit, and since Walrein flinched, I ended it with an Earthquake for good measure. Her fourth Pokemon was another Glalie, who I took down as well with a few Rock Slides, followed by a Psychic Attack. And her final Pokemon was Celio, who met the exact same fate, getting stoned to death like it was medieval times. That marked my third easy Elite Four win, which made me confident this would be a breeze. So I faced off against the final Elite Four member, Drake, the Dragon user. He sent out Shelgon as I sent out Solrock. I immediately missed the first Rock Slide, leaving me open to some Rock Tombs, which greatly reduced my speed. I got his Shelgon below half health with a Rock Slide, but his Dragon Claw did quite a bit of damage as well. This led him to switch in Flygon, which took down Solrock with a crunch. I sent in Minun to lower his accuracy with Flash, but he got one shot as well with Earthquake. I then sent in Absol, who managed to survive an Earthquake and used Swords Dance to power up the Shadow Ball in the next turn, bringing Flygon to critical condition. But one full restore undid all that progress, and Absol had one more chance to use Shadow Ball before getting taken down by a Flamethrower. I sent in Torkoal to handle the situation, which he did, using Body Slam to paralyze the Flygon and finishing him off with 2 strengths without getting KO'd. Drake then sends back in his Shelgon, who gets one shot by a Body Slam. And finally, he sends out his Salamence, which leads me to do a really big brain play. Revive Minun, sacrifice Torkoal, paralyze Salamence with Thunder Wave, faint, then spam Ancient Power with Corsola until he's dead. And it worked. His next Pokemon, Altaria, ends up being a breeze, and goes down to 2 Ancient Powers with Corsola, and I was finally at his last Pokemon, Kingdra. But this is where things go horribly wrong. I'm trying to bring Minun and Absol back to life, but Kingdra starts dragon dancing, growing stronger and stronger each turn. And while Corsola barely causes any damage, he takes us out with a Body Slam and 2 Surfs. I then switch in Skarmory, who gets killed in 2 turns as well, followed by a Minun, who gets one shot by a Body Slam. And finally, Absol, who gets off a Shadow Ball, but not before dying to another Body Slam. And that was it. A terrible loss in the last moment. So it turned out that playing with a team that can't evolve would prove a lot harder than I thought. Just the base stat difference alone between my team and the Elite Fours are miles apart. I mean, one of my leading attackers is a f***ing Minun for God's sake. But I wasn't gonna give up yet. And if I was losing to an Elite 4 member, I knew the champion would be leagues ahead, so I knew I had to start training. And once I reached a level where I was confident I would win, I challenged the Elite 4 once again. The first 3 members were even easier than last time. I took down Sydney, Phoebe, and Glacia's team even more effortlessly, which made me confident to face off against Drake. So I challenged him once more. My Torkoal took down his Shelgon with strength, then my Absol one-shot his Flygon with a newly acquired Ice Beam. Thirdly, my Solrock killed his Altaria with a Rock Slide, and my Corsola killed off his Salamence with Ancient Power, and we were back to his last Pokemon, Kingdra. The plan was to paralyze him and reduce his accuracy, which Minun did. Then I switched into Absol, who got him to critical health just before fainting to a Body Slam. But he was back on that bullshit. I tried to use Solrock as a sacrifice to heal Minun, but he quickly killed both of them with a single hit. So I used Corsola as another sacrifice to heal Minun again, and after paralyzing him, alongside a few back and forths, Minun got him to low enough health for Skarmory to swoop in and finish the job with Fly. That marked my very difficult win against Drake, and let me tell you, all that confidence I had before started to fizzle out for the champion. I was scared. Now this was my team's final test. Can a team of non-evolved Pokemon beat the Hoenn League champion? We're about to find out. Wallace, the champion of course, starts the battle sending out Wailord, as I sent out Torkoal. Yikes. I immediately switch into Minun, who gets one-shot instantly by a Water Spout. I then send out Skarmory, who hits him with a Fly Attack, while his Wailord rain dances. And I knew it was about to get tragic. On the next turn, I take the chance to revive Minun and get one-tapped by a super boosted Water Spout. But I keep calm, send back in Minun and paralyze him, and then he kills me again. So I send in Corsola to revive Minun a second time, knowing he was the only one who can take down this Wailord. And I was right. After a successful Corsola sacrifice, Minun jumped into battle and thunderbolted his Wailord to death. 5 more Pokemon to go. The next Pokemon he sent out was Gyarados, who just so happens to be super weak to lightning, and I take him down with a single Thunderbolt. His third Pokemon is Whiscash, and since Minun's Thunderbolt was all used up, I hit him with a Flash to lower his accuracy before dying to an Earthquake. I then decide to switch in Solrock and use Solar Beam to my advantage. I'm able to hit him with a Solar Beam twice while avoiding death by a Surf Attack, forcing him to heal both times. With my health at 3 HP, I decide it's wise to heal up and try for a final Solar Beam, which works out in my favor, tanking another Surf, then knocking him down the next turn. His fourth Pokemon is a Tentacruel, to which I tried to heal up and take down with Psychic, but unfortunately got KO'd by a Hydro Pump. I send out Absol and decide it's time to revive Minun for a third time this battle, letting Absol take the fall. And it worked out just fine, as Minun was able to take him down in just a few turns, forcing Wallace to waste his third full restore and ending him with a Thunderbolt. His fifth Pokemon was a Ludicolo, so I Thunder Waved him and revived my Absol to full health. Once healed, I switched him into battle and used a super effective Aerial Ace that dismissed his evasiveness from Double Team. In just 2 hits, he was out of there. Finally, Wallace sends out his last Pokemon, Milotic. And this had to be the most dragged out fight of Pokemon I've ever experienced. To summarize, I sacrificed Torkoal in order to heal Minun, then used Minun to paralyze him and do some damage before dying. I then sent out Absol and revived Minun, hit him with a Shadow Ball to do a little more damage before dying, send out Minun again, the last hope, and get caught in a real-time 2-minute cycle of using Thunderbolt and Milotic healing with Recover. This was the most grueling thing I've ever had to be a part of, even making me use an elixir to restore Minun's Thunderbolt usage. But eventually, after that long chess match, Milotic was taken down, blessing me the win against Wallace, and crowning me the Hoenn champion. And I can honestly say, after completing this challenge, I hate this game so much more than before. I would love to never have to play a Hoenn game again, especially after this challenge. Now to answer the question, can you beat the game with a team of unevolved losers? Technically, yes. Will it take away the joy you experience and the deep bond you form with your Pokemon as you watch them grow into something bigger and stronger? Also, yes. Now, some of these Pokemon aren't terrible, like Absol, Skarmory, or even Torkoal when they're by themselves. But having a team full of them, not the greatest. But hey, I challenge you to try it for yourself, and maybe you enjoy it and do a lot better than I did. And if you liked the video and want to see more content like this, consider subscribing and leaving a comment on what challenge I should take on next. Make sure to also check out my last video where I took on Pokémon Black 2 with Kanto Pokemon only. Until next time.